Us now in a Hannity exclusive is novelist and reported former Clinton fixer Jeff Rovin. Mr. Rovin, how are you, sir?
Sean,
very nice to meet you. How did you meet the Clintons?
I've been interviewing celebrities since I was 19, and the editor of the Enquirer at the time, David Perell, good friend of mine, said, "Hey, I've got a really bad story about somebody you just profiled in Ladies' Home Journal." I said, "If I can get you an interview, would you bury it?" Negotiations followed, but that began a decades-long career as what Dylan Howard, the current editor, has.
Yeah. Now, I did talk to Dylan about your piece, and I'll get to that in a second. You know, a lot of people, they hear National Enquirer. Well, let me just put up a few stories that the National Enquirer broke that were correct. For example, the National Enquirer broke first and correctly O.J. in the Bruno Magli shoes, if you remember back at the time. The National Enquirer first broke John Edwards, the whole love child scandal. First the girlfriend, then the picture of the baby, if you recall. The story they broke also was Jesse Jackson's love child. The story the National Enquirer broke first and correctly, world exclusive, woman at the center of Tiger Woods' cheating scandal is exposed. And then the story they broke first and correctly, Gary Hart asked me to marry him at the time, and they were the first to have photos of Hart and Donna Rice on Monkey Business. And there were other, they've gone after conservatives. They went after Rush and some other stories. So people attack it because it's a tabloid, but they have a pretty good track record.
David Perell, who ran the teams investigating most of those stories, is a journalist. You may not like the material, but ironically, it is so heavily vetted because it is so controversial. It's probably better vetted than most of the stories in other media.
Well, I went through with your editor everything that you had. You do have ledgers. You did have the faxes with the letterhead and the timestamps. The Clintons know you. They're watching now. They know who you are. They know you fix things for them. Tell us about how you got in the business with them and what you did.
I was fixing something. I really don't like that term, but there it is. I was fixing something for an actor who was in their inner circle, and that was how I was engaged. Now, it was that simple. I also, as a ghostwriter for Tom Clancy, had met generals and undersecretaries. I knew where the back doors were in Washington. So there were different ways to deal with things.
You knew when Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton went on 60 Minutes and they denied Jennifer Flowers, which eventually he admitted to in the Starr report, that he was lying.
Yeah, you know, I thought this was going to be pretty easy when I first agreed to do it because you had Paula Jones, Jennifer Flowers. The stuff was out there. I figured, okay, we're done. We weren't. I would say that David Perell's files, and I know that Dylan and his team have their own files, but David's files were massive. I mean, we're talking Canterbury Tales massive. And the reason that I agreed to participate in this process now was not an easy decision because I don't like publicity.
Why did you?
Yeah. Because Dylan showed me the article. There were names in there that I didn't feel should be in there, friends of mine, confidential sources that he didn't realize were confidential. And I said to him, okay, I will participate, provided I can compare your article to my journals, take out these names, and most importantly, and this is going to have the odor of hypocrisy considering the story itself, I wanted to write an editorial condemning the salacious nature of political reporting now. Look, the New York Times has become the Enquirer has become the New York Times. The world is upside down. We've got to set it right again.
All right, so your job was to help hide their scandals. And the degree to which you're saying they had an open marriage, you're talking about hookers, you're talking about dirty tricks, spying off journalists, and much more. Why don't you give us specifics?
Well, again, let me qualify that by saying these are Dylan's words. One of the reasons I wanted to come on your show.
Is there anything that's not true in what I said?
No. One of the reasons I wanted to come on your show is to put things in a little less hyperbolic way, perhaps.
A little less sensational?
Yeah, without the screaming.
You don't think paying off people and having an open marriage and...
To me, it's not my business and it's nobody else's
So you're
business.
libertarian in terms of people's sexuality. That doesn't matter to you?
My personal feelings were irrelevant in this. It was really a matter of, look, when you are at the White House and turn a corner and there's the Gilbert Stuart portrait of George Washington that's on our money, when you walk in the Rose Garden with your wife, you get seduced. You want to protect the people who are helping you have that access.
And that happened to you?
To a degree, sure, and I was only on the periphery. You can imagine what
How many times were you in the Clinton White House?
Twice. I was there twice.
What about one of the big issues that I think matters? Hillary claims she's a champion of women's rights. You have, I assume this came from you to Harold Ickes, a lot of redactions in it, though, about how to smear Monica Lewinsky.
Actually, that particular document came the other way around. It says
to Mr. Ickes from.
Yeah, the from was one of the reporters that we hired to dig into Monica's story, and that document.
And they were out to smear her in a major way as being nuts and, you know, very unstable, emotionally needy. All sorts of dirt.
But here's the irony of this. That document has been in the files of the tabloids for 20 years because I was told, send this to your contacts, see if they can dig up more information. And I'm only glad that I got to apologize in person to Monica.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
Where?
She became my neighbor in New York in one of those cosmic karmic ironies.
Wow. And you told her what you did and who paid you. And
well,
you say you never got paid. Did you? You never got paid?
I never got paid for this, no.
Why would you be a fixer and not get paid?
Because I was working with people who were involved.
But you got money to pay off other people.
Correct.
And who gave you that money?
Right. Not going to get into that. Those are some of the names that I wanted out of the original article.
So there were certain people that would give you money. Was there ever threats if you either knock it off or we'll break your legs?
No. It was, first
Nothing,
of all,
not necessarily from you. I watch a lot of movies.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
Or was it all bribery?
It was all bribery, but it was more...
Payoffs.
Yeah, because you have to
understand. Was there a sort of a threat, a subtle threat given, you're going to shut up now? Anything like, that's a fair question.
No, it's absolutely a fair question, but the trickle-down or trickle-up nature of this was the tabloid sources that I would pay would then go to their sources, who were invisible people like limo drivers, hotel clerks, wait staff, security guards, who would see and hear things and would tip them off. So it went from that group to the reporters to me, and then I had to make the decision about how to deal with it. And most of the time it was just money. There never had to be any threats.
What was your contact? You're saying the Clintons directly knew what you were doing?
I spoke to Hillary on 2 separate occasions about certain things. Now,
can you say what they are?
I'd rather not at this point. This
is a big part of the question.
Yeah,
this would be important.
I spoke to her at the Roger Clinton wedding,
where the National Enquirer had exclusive access.
Yeah.
Maureen Dowd said it's not true.
Yeah, well, we had exclusive, complete access. I know. I saw Maureen had filed a story in the New York Times.
Right.
You have to remember that every time I saw Hillary, I was bringing bad news. The messenger got shot.
Did she have the infamous temper we read about? Not with you?
I wouldn't say there was a temper. There was a steeliness. There was
a resolve to fix it.
Yeah, uranium in the
Would she tell you specifically, you fix this?
She said she wanted it fixed.
I tell you what, we got to take a break. We'll come back and we'll have more. This is a pretty incredible story about cover-ups and, well, about a life of the Clintons that they obviously don't want the American people to know. We'll continue with Jeff Rovin. He is known as the Fixer. This is the National Enquirer piece, and also coming up tonight. And welcome back to Hannity as we continue with novelist and reported former Clinton fixer Jeff Rovin is with us. All right, smearing happened. Money was paid. Orders were given. You were to go out and damage the reputation of people like Monica Lewinsky.
Well, I didn't personally go out and damage it, but...
Part of an effort.
It was a team effort, yeah.
Got it. This was an open marriage with the Clintons.
So it's been said.
Well, wait a minute. That's hedging way too much here.
No.
That's what the piece says.
Look, if screaming is to be taken as validation, there were harsh words behind closed doors that we all heard.
And their effort was to destroy Monica Lewinsky, destroy her.
That was the original concept, and I have to say that as this proceeded, because the president kept insisting there was nothing there, and ultimately, and again, this may sound strange, to his credit, he's the one who put the kibosh on using any of this material.
They also claim that, in fact, Hillary did, in fact, have a romantic relationship with Vince Foster.
That, you know, that was pretty much of an open secret. We're in our circles. You know, the order to intervene with the press for at least a half hour after he committed suicide.
Will you let the media look at these ledgers, the 24 years worth, I guess, that you handed over to Dylan, the years worth of notes and calendars, or this 10-year period? Will you let the public, would you let journalists see that?
I'd have to think about that. Certainly.
The things that Dylan saw that put this piece together.
Yeah, it required me to be there to interpret a lot of, you know, my shorthand. But
Sure.
The fact that my dates lined up with his dates and his information was what was important.
It is interesting because one of the worries of the Clinton campaign, and we saw this in WikiLeaks and John Podesta, and in particular his relationship with this woman that the Secret Service has labeled the Energizer, and the subject line read Julie, which is her real name, and saw her picture in the Enquirer. Podesta wrote to Cheryl Mills, obtained by WikiLeaks, probably need to revisit the Whitehaven conversation. That seems to corroborate.
Well, but that's just my point. The Enquirer has its own independent resources, and again, I have to stress, I came forward primarily to protect the people that I worked with.
What is this tape that the Enquirer had that you came in and got, and you traded off special access to Roger's wedding? What is that?
I was alerted to the fact that there was an audio tape from an answering machine in which the president's name was invoked. A liaison with a young woman was recommended or suggested, I forget which. And as soon as we found out about that, we wanted it to be killed. It had been offered to the Enquirer. I called David Perel, and he said, well, if you've got something more newsworthy, we'll consider it. I went back to my people with that, and we decided the wedding was probably more newsworthy.
How many reporters were paid off to kill stories for the Clintons?
Again,
that you know of?
They were paid to soften the stories.
Or kill it.
They eventually got out in diluted form. But we had, I think, 5 primary tabloid reporters for the Enquirer, the Star, and the Globe who were watching out for everything that went on editorially. And
could anyone pay to get a story killed?
Pay?
Could you pay to get a story? They're writing a story about you. Could you go to them and say, I'll give you X dollars to kill the story?
We'll find out tomorrow, but I don't think so.
You don't think? But how, are these prominent? Is this the New York Times, ABC, CBS?
No.
These are tabloid reporters.
What would happen is if we got wind of a story from the tabloids, chances were pretty good it would end up in one of the mainstream newspapers or magazines. We would then contact one of those people and say, this isn't true, don't run it, here's...
Right, final 2 questions.
Yeah.
What do you want people to take out of this? What do you, in other words, you say you're libertarian, you don't care about people's private life. Okay, this is pretty salacious stuff.
Yeah.
What do you want people to take out of that?
It's a stinking business. It's an absolutely rotten, stinking business.
The Clintons stink because they hire people like you to kill stories for them, or are they smart?
It's absolutely necessary, unfortunately.
For them?
And for everyone. I mean, if you've seen Wiener, you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's the main appeal of this to me and the risks that I am taking professionally to do this. I don't know what's going to happen to the TV series based on my novels. They could die tomorrow.
Right.
The important message to get out, and you've said it yourself, is the election is too important to focus on this salacious
That raises
material.
my last question. Who are you voting for? Because obviously people are going to wonder, are you doing this because you like Donald Trump?
I am not doing this for or against any candidate. I am doing this hopefully to
level the playing field.
Level it, and I hope that this stuff is so unpalatable that we just stop. I mean, I know that's an absurd dream.
It sounds like you like Trump, though.
I like Trump, sure.
Who are you voting for?
One of those two.
All right. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Sean.
it. Coming up next.